When is it okay to say that these people should hate those people and it's okay to kill them? My name is Chris and I used to be a content moderator for Facebook, and today we're going to look at what Facebook's Oversight Board thinks about this question. So what exactly happened? Well, it starts with Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. He was the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, and he posted something, I think it was on Twitter, that was pretty horrible. It would count as hate speech in my book. And then a little while later, two people were having a discussion on Facebook, or an argument, I don't know the detail. One of them said something and the other one replied by posting a copy of this tweet. Now Facebook looked at this screenshot and said, that's hate speech, and they deleted it. The user complained to Facebook. He wanted them to reinstate the post, but they looked and they said, no, it's still hate speech, you can't say that, so they left it down. So he came to the Facebook Oversight Board and he's asked them to take a look. So let's take a look ourselves and see what we can learn about content moderation from this. So what's important? What are the questions we need to ask? What topics, what issues do we need to consider? Well, let's start with hate speech as a concept. We need to define what hate speech is. And then we need to ask ourselves, are there any situations where it might be okay to say things that might be considered hate speech? Otherwise, we're looking at the idea of justification. We also need to ask whether politicians, for example, follow the same rules as the rest of us, or are they allowed to say things that maybe the rest of us are not allowed to say? And then once something has been said, is it okay for somebody else to repeat what that person has said, whether it's as a criticism or an endorsement, or can we even tell the difference? Which brings me to the next question. Does the intention behind the post matter, or do we just look at the words themselves and apply a hard and fast rule? Is there any flexibility in what's okay and what isn't? And then finally, do we need to ask about the wider context? Do we need to think about things that are going on in the world that day, that week, that might influence the way that we talk about specific topics, or might change our ideas about what it's okay to say? So let's take a look at the case in detail. And it all starts with Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia. And he tweeted, he said, "Muslims have a right to be angry and kill millions of French people for the massacres of the past. But by and large, the Muslims have not applied the eye for an eye law. Muslims don't. The French shouldn't. Instead, the French should teach their people to respect other people's feelings." Now, when we read this is immediately from a content moderation perspective. This is hate speech. It's very clear, very simple. Now, hate speech is defined as any kind of violence or ill will towards a protected category. And a protected category is something like your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your religion, anything that is central to who you are, to your being. So if I say that I hate Irish people, which I don't, then that would be hate speech. If a comedian says that we should kill all men, well, that is, unfortunately, it's hate speech, even though it's intended humorously. Any kind of attack on anybody because of their protected characteristic is hate speech. Now, when I was a content moderator at Facebook, if somebody had complained about a reply, we would also see, well, what are they replying to? So we would have seen that first comment. So we would have some idea, maybe, for example, if the question is, what's so bad about this guy? And then somebody posts a comment to say, well, look what he said. Well, you're then not repeating the hate speech. So it would be okay in some circumstances. And we don't know what happened in this case. We don't have all the information that we need. But we do know that the user who replied by posting this screenshot didn't say anything like, look what a terrible person he is. He said this. He didn't say, this guy said this and I condemn this. I think it's terrible. He put it up without any comment. And unfortunately, that means that we have to take it as what we call PSR, praise, support and representation. What he's doing is repeating this person's words without any kind of commentary. He's just spreading the message. So I can understand why the content moderator at Facebook has looked at this and just said, okay, you're spreading hate. You're repeating a message that shouldn't have been put out there in the first place. So that's hate speech, and I'm going to delete it. Now, the other question is, why did the user post this? What was his intention? Because he told the Oversight Board that he wanted the world to see the terrible things that his Prime Minister had said. And yeah, that may be true, but mate, I don't know what's going on in your mind when you sit down at the keyboard and type something that I consider to be hate speech. I don't know if you're a wonderful person, and I haven't got time to try and figure it out. I'm seeing 800 of these every single night. It's 100 per hour, one every 30 seconds. And if you're not totally clear to me about what your intention is, I just have to assume that hate speech is hate speech, and I have to delete it. Now, there are a lot of people out there who are maybe thinking we shouldn't rely on rules, we should use a little more common sense and initiative in deciding what's okay. Well, there are 40,000 people right now doing content moderation for Facebook. Each one of those people is making a difficult decision every 30 seconds. Now, do you want all of those people to just do whatever makes sense to them based on their own cultural perspective and their own value system, or do you want everybody to always make the same decision if they're seeing the same piece of content? If everybody's going to make the same decision and it's the wrong decision, well, we can change the rule and everybody will do the right thing in future. But if everybody is just doing whatever makes sense to them, then it's going to be chaos and there isn't any point having content moderation. So if you don't like the rules, why don't you write your own? Get down there into the comments section. Tell me what the rules should be for hate speech. How content moderators should deal with somebody reporting that some politician said something. Tell me how you think that should be dealt with so that we never get false positives and we never get the bad stuff slipping through. I'd love to see that. So the Oversight Board's final decision on this case was that they were not going to make a decision. Their argument was that when they take a case, they have to notify everybody involved. And this one, remember, it was a reply to something that somebody else had already said. And that person deleted their original post, which means that it's not possible to republish the article in question if the board rules that it shouldn't have been deleted. So the board kind of said, yeah, nothing we can do, it's kind of pointless. And I think they missed the point, because their job is not to worry about this individual case. Their job is to see what we can learn, what failures can we identify so that we can do the job better in future. So to do that, they have to investigate in detail and they have to understand what happened, and they didn't do it. This was their first case and it's really disappointing. So what do you think? Did the Oversight Board make the right decision? Were they right to just set this one aside because it didn't make any difference what they decided and focus on finding some place where they could hold Facebook to account on this, their very first case? Or should they have just dug into the detail of this and made a ruling on a matter of principle? Opinions vary. Let me know what your opinion is. Put it down in the comments section below and we'll have a look in a few weeks and see what the consensus of opinion was out there on the internet. In the meantime, I'm going to have to go and start researching the next one. I've been Chris. This has been Oversight Examined, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.